The coronavirus hiatus rages on here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. It's week number 9, and we got another great show for you coming up tonight. DC United's attacking midfielder Kevin Paredes is going to join us here in just a few minutes. But before we get started there, players were supposed to be back in practice this week, at least on an individual basis, but we've seen some news out of the club that perhaps DC United hasn't quite gotten the approvals yet from the District of Columbia.
Yeah, the ruling from MLS was in accordance with local government, and as anyone in the district in Virginia and Maryland knows, we're still pretty locked up tight here. So those players haven't been able to go to training. It's been pretty hard going on Instagram and seeing all this Dynamo players and Atlanta United players running around with masks on and getting back into shape, and our guys having to be stuck.
Yeah, I'm definitely hopeful that that we see the black and red back in training soon. You know, it's they've got the facility out in Loudoun, but I don't know that that's, you know, in much better shape. It seems like, you know, from all the conversations we've heard, they want to do it at Audi Field, and they're just working through the final paperwork with the city to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, Rory mentioned that it was going to take some legwork to do. It sounded like, you know, there were a lot more steps than what one would assume, not having a say. You know, obviously we're all like, no, just send the players back. It's fine. Have them wear a mask. But, you know, it seems probably rightfully so that the league and the team are trying to be really strict about, you know, who's coming in and what players are doing. The last thing the league would want is, you know, news that there's an outbreak because of something that MLS did. I mean, I don't know if you all remember, I think it was like that basketball player that jokingly like touched everything in the locker room and then tested positive for Corona 2 days later. I would assume the league doesn't want that bad press.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think we're also desperate to get soccer back, that we are hanging on every single potential moment of, hey, well, players are back in the field. Maybe that shows we're coming back sooner. I really think it's just a question of, hey, this is the best way that we can get these guys doing anything, you know, especially guys who don't have yards or other, you know, space that they can run around in. There's only so much you can do inside to get yourself ready to play a soccer game whenever that comes. But I think we're still, unfortunately, longer off than we'd like to be for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was some news that broke today through ESPN that the league is taking some big steps to really try to figure out what can they do next. And, you know, we'll talk later on in the show about some of the news that Stephen Goff broke this week about potential formats and things like that. But even just talking about testing for players, for coaches, referees, media, right? Like, we're going to talk even further in detail about Germany's plans and how some of these other countries are starting to get it together. But for the U.S., I think a lot of those questions are still unanswered. And June 8th is the most recent date that the league put out that games could return. But I personally am expecting an update, you know, probably this week, pushing back at least that piece. You know, we're kind of due for the next what would have been the next delay of practice overall. But I think at this point, you know, maybe we're closer and closer to actual team practices, but they've got to sort out some of these protocols. It feels like first.
I feel like we were kids at the pool during the summer waiting on a lightning break, and then all of a sudden everyone's about to jump back in and you hear thunder and whistle blows and you're sitting around waiting. Everyone's ready to go. Just got to make sure it's safe.
I love that analogy because that is what it feels like. We're just waiting and waiting.
I wasn't sure if you were going to go with like Adult Swim because, you know, some of the other leagues around the world are about to start to get to play again, but we're still going to be, you know, on the sideline. But I guess we got to get to some semblance of soccer first. So maybe it'll be Adult Swim right out of the lightning break, and then we'll finally get back to normal.
That's funny. I mean, it's not surprising to me that MLS is going to be one of the, maybe not the last, but at least not the very first one to start up, seeing as, you know, when you just saw how the virus kind of spread around the world and how the countries kind of reacted to it. You know, Europe and Asia, they were definitely weeks ahead of wherever the US was with the virus. So, I mean, it's disappointing because obviously I want to cheer on the black and red, but not surprising.
Well, and there was a story today, I forget where I saw it, but it was basically talking about some of those elements of, hey, you know, which sports league is going to be the first one back? Is that an opportunity that you can capitalize on? And I think the takeaway from that article was, yeah, it would be great to get MLS to be the only sport out there people would watch because, let's be honest, everyone wants to watch something. But if that lasts for a day or a week or so, and then you have those negative things in the back end, it's not really worth it to try to jump into it there.
Yeah, and it seems like, from the story that ESPN broke today, some of the conversations at league headquarters, MLS realizes that there's over 700 players in the league, right? They're all kind of training on their own, doing whatever they can to stay fit, because this could happen really at any moment. I think we all were hoping things would have moved a little bit quicker, but none of the players could afford to, totally lose their fitness, right? So they're going to local parks where they can, where they're open around the country. They're using courtyards, as we heard when we were talking to Frederic Briant a few weeks ago, or high school facilities that are available. And so it seems like the league right now is kind of coming to the conclusion that maybe this is safer if we tell players they can train, but they have to do it at the team facility, so at least it's a controlled environment. But obviously the next variable there is introducing more and more players to the mix. And then you get some of the same challenges you're going to see once games start.
And it goes back to the discussion we've had before about teams that have resources, teams that have invested in having those training facilities, being ready to handle. Like, obviously, no one was planning for a pandemic, but it gives you just another reason why having your own solid facilities, which DC United, to their credit, is well on their way to having out loud. But it's something that I think we've all wanted for a long time, and needs to get done even faster now.
Yeah, I was just about to say there's such a difference across the league of, the teams that have private facilities versus teams that, share really, really nice facilities with, other sports teams versus teams that, don't have anything, don't have ownership, train somewhere where they're renting. So, there's such a vast difference. I would imagine that the league is a little bit taking that into consideration. Obviously, if your owners have put in the resources or your cities put in the resources, if you'd have a private training facility, that's awesome. And you should be able to benefit from that and, have a slight advantage. But you don't want to completely give one team an advantage over another if, they're just starting off, or like DC United, we're working on our way to getting these facilities. It's not like they can say that DC United is going to start with like half fit players because we don't already have this. So it's really interesting, and I'm not envious of not having, or of having to be the one to make that decision.
Yeah, it is absolutely going to be fascinating to see, how this all comes together after solo training. Players start to come back into real training. Testing's obviously got to be figured out. And honestly, what are some of the competitive matches themselves going to look like? I mean, we'll talk a little bit later in the show about the formats that are being kicked around, but we've talked a bit on the show about what it's going to be like without crowds. And, I actually went back and found a video on YouTube from one of the Champions League games this year that took place overseas, right before this all happened. And it's so eerie without fans in the stands. So, what is that going to look like? It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, if they go the cutout route or they pump in noise, I don't know. I think overall, we're learning every day. And I think, there are going to be jokes and memes and teasing and whatever, but as long as we get soccer back, I'm totally fine with whatever they decide to do.
We can't we also don't want to keep our guests waiting. Kevin Paredes has just joined us here, so we're going to toss it to break, get him mic'd up, and we'll be right back here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. The DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes.
Can't listen to us live on YouTube? Find Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, or Pocket Casts the morning after the match.
Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 90 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening live. If you want to join the conversation, let us know what you think in real time using the chat on YouTube Live, on Twitter using the hashtag TriedAndTrueDCU, or text us at 202-892-6328.
Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, will be back in less than 60 seconds.
Let us know what you think between games on Twitter at #TriedAndTrueDCU or email us at triedandtruedcu@gmail.com.
Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, will be back in less than 30 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Instagram or Twitter at TriedAndTrueDCU. Again, that's Instagram or Twitter at TriedAndTrueDCU.
We are back here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and we're pleased to be joined by Kevin Paredes. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
No, it's great to have you on. We're super excited to chat with you in the midst of the virus break we're having right now. But most importantly, how are you and the family holding up with everything that's going on in the world?
Yeah, it's kind of getting hard to adapt to all of this, but you know, we're holding up pretty well. Everyone's staying safe and healthy here. You know, getting on my brother's nerves is always fun. But yeah, we're all doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. It's definitely, I noticed, you know, the longer this goes on, the more you're having to adapt, it feels like. But it's good that you're staying good. How's it going with your schooling?
Schooling is going well. You know, having a lot more time to finishing up stuff than a normal day of training and going all the way to DC. But yeah, I've been having a lot more time with schoolwork and getting stuff done, which is really good. My parents are happy about it.
Yeah, you mentioned training. MLS has allowed limited individual training so far, but it seems like team training is starting to open up, at least for some other teams. We've talked to Fred and a couple of the other players about how they're staying fit. How are you doing it in this time?
Well, if you guys know, the DC sent us workout plans, and yeah, I've been doing my best ability to do that and do more to keep up with guys until we come back, and yeah, staying focused on that. So when I come back, I'm as fit as the rest of the group.
Definitely a challenge to keep up on that. You know, so you're a fairly recent addition to the DC United senior team. You came up through academy. What was that experience like? Are all the academy players looking at that saying, "Hey, I want to play for the big guys," or how was that experience for you?
Yeah, that transition from being academy to the senior team is really, really cool, and honored to be a part of it. And all the academy guys really pushed me to get to where I am today. So I appreciate them as well as they work hard to hopefully get in my position too. And yeah, if we all work hard, they can definitely accomplish that.
Do you have a favorite DC United Academy memory that you can share with us?
Ooh, had a lot of those. Probably U15's year, we were the first USA team to win the Cayman Islands tournament. It had like big teams like Man City, Cuba's national team, a lot of Jamaican teams. So we were fortunate enough to actually be the first USA team to win it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank
you. You already know what a winning mentality is, so once
Yep.
you bring up and get some more consistent starts, you'll carry the team all the way to the cup, I'm hearing.
Hopefully. That's the goal.
So what's it been like, you know, having guys like Griffin and Moses on the team? I mean, obviously you guys are all around the same age. I've heard from Griffin a little bit that you guys have a tight bond. I mean, what's that relationship like, and what does that mean to have, you know, some really good friends on the team as well?
Yeah, it's really cool because me, Griffin, Moses have all been best friends through the academy. We grew up together. We trained hard together. Now to see that we're all like being successful and working hard every day, and having them too, even though we're the same age, having them as my mentor as well, it's really, really blessing for me to learn from kids my age too that are also doing big things as well.
Who's the most competitive out of the three of you?
Most competitive. Oof. I don't know. It's either me or Griffin. We're the both of us go at it, or even Moses. All three of us are very competitive, but yeah, it's fun working with them.
That's great to hear. I was trying to pull up some of your stats from the US-17s, and I saw you scored. It said you scored your first game in the goal in the game against Netherlands. That was 3-3. And I saw that Moses had also played in that game. How is that being on the U17 side together?
Oh, it's an honor to be part of the DMV and being the two that get to represent the DMV for the national team. So we both worked very hard for this, and being a part of the team, representing the country, representing ourselves, representing our family, the team is an honor for us. So happy for that. That's
awesome to hear. Your DC United's 14th homegrown. Have you talked to any of the homegrowns, like Bill Hamid or before he left, Chris Durkin, about how it goes from being an academy player to one of the stars on the team like those guys did?
Yeah, I had many chats with Bill. Haven't had any chats with Chris yet, but hopefully down the road I get to talk to him once. But yeah, from Bill, he told me it's all about keeping my head down, staying humble, and keep working. Even if I don't have the chance right now, since I'm starting up, the best way to go at it is working hard, showing responsibility at a young age. And he definitely showed that for DC, and now he's a really good player, really good keeper for us. So it's cool to see his advice and how hard he worked for him being the national team as well. So having a person on the senior team giving me advice, and yeah, he takes good care of me, and Don, all of those guys take good care of me.
That's awesome. I was about to say, it sounds like you have so many great mentors on the team, and have you been able to talk to Bill and Paul specifically about the national team and what that feels like, and what that process is like?
Yeah, I talked to Paul a lot. Since we're similar to the same position, smaller guy on the field, it's good to have someone I can look up to. And yeah, so he basically told me, since I'm not the strongest, fittest guy right now, he taught me to always stay humble and work harder than everyone else, so that hopefully down the line I can get into their position too on the senior team and work hard for that.
Have you been talking to U.S. Soccer? I mean, obviously, focus mostly on the level right now, but has U.S. Soccer been in contact, checking up on how the training's going and everything?
Yeah, U.S. Soccer has been checking on me lately. They send me how am I doing, just stuff like that. The coaches that I have checking up on me, saying I'm staying safe and healthy, keep working and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really cool for them to speak to me at this time. And it's really encouraging and giving me more confidence to keep working hard. If I see coaches like that giving me advice, it shows that they really care about their players. So yeah, it's a really cool experience right now.
We're live with Kevin Paredes here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. And if you've got questions for Kevin, go ahead and send them in using the hashtag Tried and True DCU, or go put them live in the YouTube chat. So, Kevin, one of the common themes we've heard from talking to some of your teammates is that you're really good at FIFA. We heard it's pretty much not a question that you're the best on the team. What's the background? What's the secret to success?
Man, when you have a lot of time here, especially at this time, and getting my work done, getting soccer done, and afterwards I can just chill. Boom, you see me as soon as I get home, I'm on the sticks. I'm on the sticks playing, and yeah, I gave some of those guys a big L, but
we actually heard, we got some intel that you beat somebody 10-0, which that might have to be a lifetime ban at that point. I mean, can you spill who caught that L?
I'm sorry to say, but I had to give it to Bill. I had to give it to Bill. It was he told me he was really good, and I was like, okay, so this is gonna be a game. And I got to the game. It was like 1 or 2 minutes in, I already scored. I was like, come on, Bill. It's not one of these games.
How do you guys
Yeah,
set up is it you guys play with just like random teams, you pick your favorites, or how does it usually go? Was it
Yeah,
at least
we,
a fair playing field for
first-
Bill to lose?
yeah, yeah. The first game that we played, me and Bill played 2 games. The first game we played, we just picked our teams. I'm pretty sure I picked Bayern and he picked Man City. And I was just a whooping. He didn't even know the controls, and I was like, "Come on, Bill." And then the second game was he was Man City again. I was DC, and ended up whipping him 6-0 again. So
Oh no!
yeah, yeah. Bill expected more from Bill.
We've been working to create the DC United players FIFA power rankings, and I think we now know who's at the bottom holding up the stats.
yeah. Yeah, Bill's not the greatest, but hey, I'm still happy to play against him.
Do you have like a go-to team that you always use, or do you switch around a lot?
Yeah, I usually use Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich's a strong group, so I use them. Or if I'm playing against the guys, I like to use DC as well. Yeah, use our own players against.
Beat them with themselves. I like it.
Yeah, when I was playing with against Fish, I was DC again, and I had like 6 goals with Fish against him, so it was funny. It was really fun.
We can definitely see that competitiveness right now. Go for fun.
Yeah.
Now, has that ever backfired? Have y'all played a game of FIFA, then headed out on the training field, and some of them have taken out their frustrations on you, or?
Nah, not yet. They haven't used the FIFA aspect on me yet, but when we get to the field, is really competitive. So maybe, but I just haven't seen it yet. Yeah. Actually, yeah, that has happened once. Actually, when I played Ulisura, yeah. Yeah. So I whooped him like 9-1 or something like that. And I'm pretty sure the next 2 practices, I forgot what it was. We were doing rondos in the beginning, passing around, and he got a nasty meg on me. So maybe it was that. Maybe he got back at me for that. But yeah, gotta give props to him. He got me good.
Can anybody keep it close with you in FIFA? Because from everything I've heard, it's not.
Yeah, so me and Earl had some quite good games, but lately we've been playing during this quarantine. It hasn't been going good for him. But a player I want to play against is Sorga. I seen Sorga's team and stuff like that. I heard he's a really good FIFA player, so hopefully I play against him. I played against the MLS Pro for DC, Mohammed. I played against him.
Yeah,
so it's actually going pretty good. It's a 1-1 tie right now.
Okay.
Got me the first game. He got me the first game, but I got him the second game. So yeah, it was a hard game against him. But
now, if you start beating him too much, do you have to do double duty, or how does
I don't know. That second game, I was lucky. I got a PK in like the 90th minute. I missed it, but I got the rebound. So Mohammed was laughing, and it was fun. It was fun playing.
Have you been watching the EMLS tournament special? What did you think of Paul's performance there?
Hey, Paul won the first game, so
yeah,
it was a cheap goal. But hey, I texted him. I was like, hey, a win's a win, so we would take anything.
What do you think about the other competition kind of throughout the league? Do you think you could take the other players on handedly, or?
Yeah, I think so. Me and Mohammed were talking about that. He was saying like, if it was me and him, no disrespect to Paul, but we probably would have went far. We probably would have won it, but hey, it's whatever.
Hey, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity. Maybe in the real off season, they'll do this again and give you guys a break, or maybe even during training camp next year. That would be a cool time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad if this was something the league continued, in the off seasons. It's been a lot of fun to watch, but soccer. Do you have any other hobbies? Anything else that, you spend your time doing? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love soccer and I'm all about it, but anything else?
Well, I can't really do it now, but basketball, I'm a big basketball fan too. And yeah, I played basketball pretty much like through elementary to middle school, and then stopped as soon as I got to the academy. But yeah, so I play against a bunch of like the high school basketball players. I keep up with them, and told me I should play for the basketball team. But I was like, nah, that's not going to be my thing later on. I'm too small for that anyways. But yeah, basketball, and I don't know, probably spending time with friends.
Right.
Whenever I get the chance, but not now. They want to hang out now since we got free time. I'm like, no chance. There's no chance I'm doing that right now. Too risky.
Watching any good shows?
Yeah, I actually have. I've been watching. Me and my dad actually has been watching The Last Dance by Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
I think I found my inspiration now from Michael Jordan. Yeah, I'm on episode 5 already, but yeah, I've been watching that. I've been watching, I don't know if you guys know Outer Banks. It's on Netflix.
Oh, is it good? It's on our list.
Yeah. I've been watching that and The 100 on Netflix as well. I watched those 2. Oh, those 3 so far.
Okay,
Good to hear, Sandon.
Solid recommendations.
Yeah. Pretty good shows.
So kind of turning back to soccer a little bit, you talked a little bit about how you've talked to some of your mentors on the team, and just kind of curious, what conversations have you had with the coaching staff? Like, what do you need to do for us to see you out at Audi Field and playing for the senior team?
Yeah, I've talked to all 3 coaches, Chad, Nolan, Ben. They all gave me really good constructive feedback, and for me to get there, I just had to be patient. Even though I want to get on the field really badly and they can see it, I just got to be patient, wait my turn, keep working hard, keep having my head level, keep learning a lot from the players in my position or out of position, learning the game a lot more, which is true because all that can be really, really important when it comes to game time. Because if I don't have that down now and then in the game, it could be a lot different than I expected it to be than our normal academy game. So, which I'm doing, being patient, like they said, keep working, keeping my head level, and yeah, watching some previous games that DC had, seeing like players like Paul or Felipe, like players in my position, area, just learn from them now. So if I do get my chance, I can execute and yeah, make the coaches happy, make the team happy, make the fans happy.
So you're a homegrown player. Did you grow up a DC fan all along, or did that kind of develop as you got into the academy?
My brothers like DC before I was like maybe 4 or 5. I didn't even know like what DC was. I didn't even know where I was living at. So, so yeah, they like DC, and my parents took me to a couple RFK games, and yeah, I when I was at those games, I was like, wow, this is where I want to be. And later on in the future, I didn't know it was gonna come this soon, but yeah, I want to be in those. Like, and I see like players like it was my favorite for a long time for DC. It was Christian Gomez. That was my favorite DC United player. Yeah, him. Yeah.
So you went to RFK and you still wanted to play for DC. So that's admirable there.
Yep. I wanted to play for DC so bad at that moment. Even though I was like 5, 6, I wanted to run on the pitch and start playing. But yeah, it's crazy that how time flies. I was like 5, 6 going to the games now. 10 years later, I'm actually in practice with those guys. Seeing Bill. Yeah, I remember watching Bill play. And going out to Paul's first training. I was there for that first training, and I took a couple of pictures with Coach, Bill. I took one with Paul, but I can't find it. But I showed the guys, and yeah, I was tiny. I was even tinier than I was now. So, and I just showed them, and they say like, "Wow, time has changed," and yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool experience right now.
That's awesome. You got such a cool story.
I grew up in the DMV, so you just. Obviously I could have never played for the team, but I also played soccer, so it's awesome to hear that you kind of had that passion at the team, and then you're seeing it through and living that dream. That's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Kevin, do you have a favorite memory from the fan side of going to games at RFK? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
So I remember one game. I was against Chicago. One of the games I can clearly remember right now. I think it was Patrick Mullins scored. It was, I don't know, 3 or 4 against Chicago or something like that.
I was in the Papusa line for at least 2 of them.
Yeah, I was watching that game. I was like, wow, this man's tearing it up for DC. And yeah, that was a game that I can really remember. That was probably one of my favorite memories, seeing just like how one player can impact the game, scoring that many goals. And yeah, that was probably my favorite RFK moment.
Well, Kevin, we hope to see you out there tearing it up like that soon. There's a question we ask all our player guests and even some of the non-players. In 30 seconds or less, can you tell us why we should buy your jersey and wear it to the games?
Why you should buy my jersey? Yes, sir. So, I'm just turned 17 2 days ago. Young talent, hardworking, always hungry to play, always hungry to work hard. I'll put my life on the line for the team, for the fans. Work hard for them. So hopefully come out and I can be a big part of making history, winning a MLS Cup. So yeah, it's gonna come soon. I'm telling you guys that it's coming to come soon.
I love it. A guaranteed MLS Cup win.
Yep.
That's a strong pitch. That's a strong pitch. Well, it's been awesome to talk to you, Kevin. You've got a great story, and we love hearing a homegrown who's grown up in the area and bleeds black and red even before you got on the pitch. And by the way, happy belated birthday. We forgot to kick off the segment with that.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Did anything fun for the birthday? I know it's a tough time to be celebrating, but did the family get you anything special? Or?
Yeah. We ate. Came back here and stayed here. My family was here. My brother was here, and we had a good time here. We ate pizza, had cake. Yeah, it was better than I expected to be. I thought I was gonna just chill here and stuff. Yeah, but yeah, they made it really, really fun and really, really loving from them. So I appreciate them for that.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking some time on your birthday week or your birthday month, however you typically spread it out, to be with us on the show. It was great having you on.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
That's DC United homegrown Kevin Paredes joining us here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and we will be right back to talk a bit about which Bundesliga team we're all going to start following because next weekend there is soccer coming back. True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes.
Can't listen to us live on YouTube? Fine, Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, or Pocket Casts the morning after the match.
Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 90 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening live. If you want to join the conversation, let us know what you think in real time using the chat on YouTube Live, on Twitter using the hashtag TriedAndTrueDCU, or text us at 202-892-6328.
Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 60 seconds.
Let us know what you think between games on Twitter at hashtag TriedAndTrueDCU or email us at triedandtruedcu@gmail.com.
Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 30 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Instagram or Twitter at TriedAndTrueDCU. Again, that's Instagram or Twitter at TriedAndTrueDCU.
Well, we know we have the power rankings going for the best FIFA players on DC United, but we may have to come up with the power rankings for the best jersey pitch because that was another strong one tonight as we come back here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. That was a good one. Willing to give his life for the team. That's a lot. That's a strong statement.
A pretty much guaranteed MLS Cup win too. I'm really excited for that one.
Well, hopefully we don't have to wait to put a 5th star on the jersey before we throw his name on the back.
True. Yeah, you're right. It was a pretty solid pitch for this season. And then you can say that you had it when he signed, and before he brought that cup home.
They're going to audit the stimulus checks and see that we all spent them all on DC United player jerseys based on these interviews. So, but as I mentioned, before we threw to break there, we've been talking about it for weeks, and we kind of built it up. And last week we didn't have the good news we hoped for, but we finally got it early this week. The Bundesliga is the first major soccer league, first major really sports league around the world to come back. We've seen a couple leagues start in Korea, but when you think about global soccer leagues, I mean, the Bundesliga is easily in the top 5, and they're coming back this weekend. Or I guess rather next weekend, but just a week from now. I can't wait. I woke up this morning and was like, next week at this time, I'll be upstairs. Multiple TVs will be on for the first time in forever. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it almost doesn't feel real. I almost feel like they're going to make an announcement on like Friday that's like, nope, never mind. And then it's going to be pushed back because we're so used to everything being pushed back. So I almost have to like see it to believe it. But
and now that Sam said it, I guess we'll have to see what happens. But
I think it's going to be the Bundesliga seems to have taken a stance here, which is, I guess, very German of them. Of like, hey, some people are going to get infected, and we're going to quarantine them, and we're going to treat them, and when they're healthy again, we'll bring them back. But they don't seem to be bothered at all by the fact that, like, definitely some folks are going to get infected. There's nothing we can do to stop that, but we're going to press. And, some of the other leagues around the world preparing for this, don't know if they've been willing to accept it quite as much. And I think we saw just yesterday a couple more players in the 2 Bundesliga tested positive, and so now they'll go into quarantine. But that's going to be a new variable here of, top player doesn't go down with an injury, but, unfortunately contracts COVID-19 and now they're out for an indefinite amount of time. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, Germany definitely, I mean, each country is handling the virus very differently, not to get political, but, Germany is a much smaller country, and they, have their healthcare is different. Their testing procedures are different. So I think that all needs to be kept in mind when you're talking about their mentality. I don't think they're saying that they're going to like sacrifice fans for the good of soccer or anything like that. I think they're just, structured a little bit differently. But it will. I mean, we kind of mentioned at the top of the show that MLS doesn't want those, negative headlines of starting too soon and having, top players or fans getting infected. So it'll be interesting, to see the first couple weeks go and to see if that happens.
Well, and back to your point, John, I do think it'll be interesting, particularly when you have a strange environment here. Like, we had players miss games with flu-like symptoms, plenty of times, and it's a physical game, injuries happen. But particularly in an incident like this, where you could have a player who feels perfectly fine and wants to get out there, but if they're testing positive, you can't have them out there and potentially spreading the virus to other players. Not only is that a major health risk, but it really undermines the integrity of the competition if you don't have full squads out there. I mean, God forbid an entire team test positive, and then you're out for 2 weeks trying to figure out the scheduling. It becomes a mess in a hurry.
Yeah, they're absolutely going to be in trouble as a league if mass infections hit one specific team. I mean, there's easily going to be calls from other teams, from the government, from fans to pause it again, because you can't. I mean, what do you do if you've got to play with largely your second team, or you don't even have enough players to field a team? I mean, they're obviously taking a big risk, but it sounds like they feel as though they can make it happen. One of the things that I particularly am frustrated about with the Bundesliga's return, though, and I think collectively on this show, as far as international leagues go, we probably all follow the English leagues closer than the others. And, in England, they've been talking all about making the games more available for fans, staggering the times, etc. And they're just not doing that in Germany. I looked at the schedule for next weekend, and how are you going to have 5 games at one time? It's crazy. Like, you could have played them all throughout the weekend. The whole world would be watching. And I've already got to choose which games I'm going to put on to start it out. To me, it's crazy. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed when I saw the schedule too. I think it kicks off with a pretty good bang with Dortmund and Schalke playing. Those are 2 of the top teams in the league, but there's like 3 games. Like you said, there's 3 or 4 games going on at the same exact time. but they are in Europe, so I guess they're trying to plan. Maybe those are the prime time games that they could set across the globe. And I mean, I'll probably go back and watch the games that I didn't get to watch while I was watching. I'm definitely going to watch the Dortmund Schalke game, like I mentioned. But yeah, I want all the soccer. I guess I'll be happy with the little bit that they're giving me.
Yeah, it looks like here in the U.S., well, I mean, globally, there's 5 games all kicking off at 9:30 Eastern. But in that window, we'll get Borussia Dortmund Schalke, which is obviously the big game of the weekend. That's on FS1. Leipzig Freiburg is on Tuden. And it looks like Augsburg Wolfsburg is on Fox Soccer Plus, which is a channel that still exists. The other 2 games in that window are not on. They're on Fox Soccer Match Pass. And then it looks like the rest of the weekend is on the standard channels. But yeah, I'm shocked. Like, why would you not spread this out more? It's a head scratcher for me.
Well, it would seem. I mean, obviously you can't schedule it out too much. Like if you only did say 2 games a day and really tried to just maximize every evening, even if you're doing it on German time, what have you, I could definitely see it becoming a challenge if you're trying to get several weeks together and balancing the schedules out. At least this way, it appears that you're avoiding most midweek games, getting through it as quickly as possible. But I think I agree with all of y'all that I would rather have as much soccer as possible and let me sit down and just watch it all day, and I'm good.
Yeah,
it's almost. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say it's a beggars can't be choosers moment. Like I can't complain too much because I've been crying for months that we haven't had sports, right? So I will take it. It just feels like a bit of a miss on the revival.
Yeah, well, I wonder what fans of the league think about this. Like specifically in Germany, I wonder if they're just like eager to get back, or if they're also bummed. I also don't know a whole lot about like what restrictions they currently have in place, like what social restrictions they have in place, but I'm just thinking about like here, even in DC specifically, people are still going to bars and just standing outside with the drink that they just bought. So I don't have 5 TVs. John, you're probably the only one I know who has 5 TVs. So it's almost like encouraging people to go out to bars to watch these games, right? So that way they can watch all of them, and then that's putting it even further at risk. Then you're not just risking the teams but the public.
Well, and that was definitely part of England's proposed response was, staggering the games so that they could all be made available on TV, and then they were also trying to work with some of the like free-to-air channels to see if, okay, Sky'd be willing to simulcast or whatever, so that even there, one, they're mitigating multiple games on at once for crowding purposes, but then 2, if you're the only one in your neighborhood, on your block, or in your building that has Sky and your game's on Sky, like, they don't want to have you having 30 people over to watch the game, right? So yeah, this is interesting to me, but it does seem like they're not anticipating big crowds outside the stadium, which is something that I think a lot of the leagues around the world are going to be interested to see. We saw that just before the global lockdowns really started in the Champions League as they moved to a couple games behind closed doors before they halted everything. And there were massive crowds outside. So it'll be interesting to see, like, do the crowd stay away? Because I think a lot of the governments have said, hey, general public, you've got a role to play here too. If you want there to still be soccer, you've got to stay home and you can't get in the way of this or we will stop it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm just like, is this actually going to happen? It feels too good to be true to have soccer back.
Yeah. And,
well,
go ahead, Black.
Well, I was going to say, I think it applies to how we're looking at MLS's potential return. Obviously, nothing's been announced fully yet, but they're talking about a number of different ideas, whether it's a tournament, whether it's playing it at a remote site, trying to find ways to get it going. We talked ad nauseum about how those leagues are in a very different position. What the German league's trying to get done by the end of June, 6 or 7 games, just so they can have it all finished. We've got an entire season to try to fit in. The longer it goes, the harder and harder that becomes. So it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are different things at stake for leagues around the world. You've got trophies you don't want an asterisk next to.
Got Champions League berths to wrap up. But it is interesting. One of the things that FIFA's done to try to mitigate that, and I see going through our we have a live group chat nowadays during the show because we can't all sit next to each other anymore, is the FIFA ruling that up to 5 subs, I believe was the number, per game now. And they've also potentially said that leagues have the option to eliminate VAR. If they had implemented it, they can eliminate it moving forward for the rest of this season. I don't think we'll see that in Germany. I'd be shocked because they're playing in all of the stadiums that are already equipped for it. But I think that one of the big questions around the world is if you move to like a neutral site type deal, or if England were to go to like the training facility for the national team for a game and they don't have the infrastructure to do VAR, I think they said they would kind of kill it across the league for the rest of the year. But boy, does that open a can of worms.
It's already so controversial, and I hadn't thought about it like that. Obviously they're implementing more subs, because as much as you're trying to train your teams right now, we did just go through like a 2-month break, and guys are eager to get on the field, but you don't want to see an increase in injury. So that was kind of the logic behind that additional sub, is because people will be less fit, you can get more bodies on the field. I hadn't thought about that VAR thought process yet. It kind of just struck me as weird, but it would be interesting. But MLS did that. MLS introduced VAR halfway through the season and completely changed the game, and it infuriated me. So,
and we've seen, particularly in England, and I believe the Open Cup last year did not have it at all, if I remember correctly. But in England, in some of those competitions, it was based on if the game was played at a Premier League ground, they would have VAR. But if it was at a lower league ground, they would not. And it was just like, okay, I guess I understand within that particular game it's a level playing field because you've got VAR for both teams or you don't. But from a competition as a whole perspective, boy, that's a big variable.
It makes such a difference. It really does. Not even like that the decisions are so vastly different between live and being able to look at a screen, but just like the play gets slowed down, and you see momentum change sometimes, especially where the decision goes, that can really get at a team or really make a team feel empowered. Like, it is such a game changer. So yeah, that's part of the reason I got so mad when they introduced it halfway through the season. It's no secret I don't like VAR ever, but the fact that that season was crazy. It was such a difference between the beginning and the end. And it's a little bit of fun watching back the old games that they're playing, all these MLS classics, and watching back especially like the very early league ones where it was basically street soccer, and you're like, could you imagine if they had today's standards plus VAR? Like, everyone would be red carded off.
Well, I'd be curious. I do not know the statistics on it, but I would be curious how many times you had a VAR decision that they just couldn't get a good angle on. Because putting a screen down to be able to show whatever they're showing is not particularly hard, but getting the number of cameras you would need to get a full picture of it, it's not like tennis where you've got the one-shot system saying, this is in, this is out. It seems to me that for the most part, you've gotten clear enough pictures to make a decision about what happened on the field. Now, whether the official makes the right decision based on that, we'll be arguing until VAR is no more, or we're not. But either way there, I'd be curious to know what the real technical limitation is on implementing it more often. If it's just a question of, hey, this one stadium doesn't have great camera angles for TV, that's why we can't do VAR there. That seems like a problem they need to address.
Yeah, truly, I would be surprised if if any leagues choose to get rid of it. I think even, obviously following the Premier League the closest, it seems like they want to host in a small number of neutral sites, but they would probably all be Premier League stadiums that are already equipped. Like, I would suspect, and just knowing the attitude in England, even if there was a very good reason to get rid of VAR, there would be all sorts of whining about what has happened earlier in the season had we not had VAR. And it would be a lot of my friends in Leicester too, because I think we've had a rough go with VAR. Everybody feels like they did, but I would prefer that you at least just keep the level playing field. If you did it for half the season, you should keep going with it. But
I would predict that if they were to undo it and take it away for the rest of the season, it would be very hard to bring back outside of a mass FIFA edict to say, you have to have this, otherwise we're not recognizing your league.
Sam sees this as the opportunity to kill it once and for all.
Literally, I was thinking that. I'm glad that Black brought it up. Is that what if all the leagues are just like, no, it's too difficult. We just want to play out our games, and all the fans are like, freaking finally, I've only been praying for this every night, and then all the leagues are like, you're right, we should just get rid of it. And FIFA's like, silly us, MLS, stop practicing new things.
I think you're daydreaming out loud on our podcast, but I don't want to get too much further into a segment we're going to cover later, but one of the solutions that Goff had presented was MLS going down to Orlando and playing on the fields down there. I don't think I think the reason they would go down there is to play on the mini fields they have, and I don't think any of those fields are prepped for AAR.
No, I don't think they are either.
So it might be us. It might be us that do it. We led the league into it, or the world into VAR, and we'll bring them out.
Back out. Yes.
I don't think it'll be a permanent change, though. I think it'll be while we're at the practice fields next to Disney.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that concept of doing a shorter term tournament? I mean, I think all of us would welcome soccer back in whatever form we can get. But if you're going to do something where it's, a one leg knockout or, smaller thing, games we can't necessarily go to, it's just being played so that you can play it.
I was thinking
about it. Sufficient for us, or how do we feel about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about it earlier today. It's almost too bad that we have the 3 Canadian teams in the league, because truly you could have made it like a mini Open Cup type thing, and then it would have been like, okay, fine. This is a tournament. It's not friendlies, right? But it's not league games. But there's a purpose behind it, and you could make it, double elimination, or you could do something with it to make it like a meaningful trophy at the end. I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, because some of the articles we've seen has been like, hey, they're going to do a tournament, but then they're also going to try to bring it back to stadiums and then try to do the playoffs. And like, do the games count equally then? Is there like an armadillo-like trophy at the end of the Orlando tournament? How does this work? But I mean, have you guys been to the ESPN Wide World of Sports? Because it's a pretty impressive complex, and I actually think they might be onto something if they could quarantine some folks in one of the Disney or multiple of the Disney resorts and play out an entire tournament right there. I mean, there's like 40 fields, and it's literally named after ESPN. So like the infrastructure is there.
I think instead of a star, you should get an asterisk for winning that tournament. No one would ever count it for anything. Red Bulls would probably win it, and they'd think they won the world. But literally, if DC United won it, I don't think I would consider it equal or even close to equal to MLS Cup. And that answers the question that you were bringing, Black. That I would love some soccer. It would be cool to see them play meaningful matches. It won't mean as much as a full season.
Well, that's what I was going to say. John said, it's almost like an armadillo trophy. You want the games to be meaningful. Obviously, any soccer right now is great, but I understand that the league wants more than just friendlies right now. Like, they want games that mean something. So I think you almost make like a Corona trophy, or, you name it something crazy. I don't know, the Chris Wondolowski trophy, because his last season was ripped short. But I feel like you make a separate trophy, you have a tournament, you acknowledge what it is, because I think the Shield, which already doesn't mean as much this season specifically, and the MLS Cup, like, it's not the same. And I think whatever team wins it, a lot of their fans are going to be like, yeah, we won a trophy. Some of their fans are going to be like, it doesn't count as much. And then the rest of the league is going to be like, it doesn't count as much. We've said so many times it's different that like all these European leagues, they only have a handful of games left. Those trophies still kind of mean the same thing because you're playing the same number of games. But this season, if you just did some crazy knockout tournament and you tried to say that was the same exact thing that, all these teams have gone through all season to win a cup, I just don't think anyone would really buy that.
Well, and it's obviously a very different environment from like the FIFA tournament that they've been playing. But I know for my part, I enjoyed watching Paul and Mo win their first game against New England, and then unfortunately dropped that second game, and I haven't tuned into the rest. If you were to do a knockout tournament where DC maybe only played 2 or 3 games, that's a very different thing than saying, okay, well, we played it and broke it up into groups where you played a round robin, and maybe we only played 10 games over the course of this to feed into this abbreviated tournament. But if you just arrange the teams in the league and played a straight knockout, I'm not sure I'm here for that.
Well, one of the things that ESPN is reporting that could potentially be a trophy, if you will, for this like mini tournament could potentially be a CONCACAF Champions League spot, which would definitely make it appealing. And I think they actually could do that pretty easily if the Open Cup is canceled, like we all think is going to happen. Maybe they're just kind of gambling on one of the Canadian teams not winning, or maybe there's a couple up for grabs because I don't know if the Canadian Championship will happen either. So that would make it fun. But yeah, it's gonna be weird no matter what. I think is kind of the only thing that we all have kind of settled on here is that no matter how this comes back, it's gonna be weird. But that's MLS, right? I mean, it's always weird if you think about it.
That's very true. Yep, always the little oddballs out in the whole soccer world, but
I will say that the U.S. Open Cup did play through the 1919 Spanish flu. They've got a short article on here on their website talking about how it was in doubt, and as being one of the longest running soccer competitions in the country, it would be a shame not to get that. But understanding what it is and where it falls in the hierarchy, it's tough. And to go back to talking about the broader use of small tournaments, I would love to see the preseason tournaments matter more. I still think one of my favorite trophies I've seen us win was the Armadillo. I'd love to see more MLS teams get in there, play more games. But I understand as well that we already have a lot of fixture congestion, particularly with the crossover games with the Yankees. It's tough to do, but I would love to see some kind of early season action that would matter more and get people ready to go. Just my 2 cents.
I mean, they'd have to make those preseason games available, I think, then. Like, I remember them being a lot more available. They weren't available. I think there was the one game that was available this season. Even the old preseason games, too, it was definitely, like, it felt like some dad on his iPhone, like, recording his kid playing. That was, like, the feel of the quality of video, but I still loved it. You're kind of, ironically, you thought postseason was such a long time and you were finally coming back to soccer and you just wanted it as much as possible.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an opportunity there. Josh was making the money symbol. Yeah, anybody that's willing to pay 100%, we can make that a reality. But I think the other thing is the league continues to expand, and we talked last week about potentially a future merger in the cards with Liga MX. There's going to be teams you don't see every year. Even if we don't merge, right, we're already on that track where we're not playing a couple of teams in the Western Conference every year. And as we continue to grow as a league, I don't think any of us love that. But what if DC comes up with a huge rivalry in the preseason against the Las Vegas Lights, who they played a couple years in the preseason? Like, that's fun. We go to Vegas every preseason. I mean, I would sign up for that, or some of the other teams that you just don't see as much, and maybe even across some of the USL circuits as well. We used to play Charleston, we used to play Richmond more, and you don't see it as much. I mean, I'm here for some games against Richmond. I mean, that's an easy ride away, or if it's in the preseason, it's probably not in Richmond, but definitely an opportunity there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Maybe a little I don't know, like regional action. You're right, and it doesn't have to be necessarily MLS, but you've still got those rivalries happening. I like it. I'd be here for it.
Yeah, speaking of regional rivalries, we're going to all play against each other in FIFA. We've got a few other people joining us. We've reached out to RFK, who seemed pretty interested in joining our tournament. We're going to push it off for one more week to make sure we get some really clean brackets and so that everyone can have the most amount of fun. But stay tuned for more information on that.
Yeah, and if that's something that you're interested in joining, I think we do have a couple slots left that we could fill. So please let us know as soon as possible that you're interested. The tournament's on Xbox, as we've mentioned before. So we'll need to know your gamer tag, and we'll get you in the loop there. And we're working with the team to try to figure out if there's any players that we could potentially rope in. Although if I draw Kevin in the first round, I might just drop out because clearly it's not possible.
we went to the baby bracket when we like had fewer numbers earlier in the week, and I'm pretty sure I was just out of that bracket. So, you know, anyone who's, you know, hesitant about it, you're probably going to draw me, but I mean, I was already out, so I'm definitely going to be the one to draw Kevin. It's going to be like 38-0, and he's just going to, I don't know, quit the team. He's going to be like, this is embarrassing.
So just to put a bow on the show here, because we failed to actually bring it up during that segment, before we talk next week, there will be real soccer. Have any of the three of you settled on your official Bundesliga team, or like me, is this kind of a period of open tryouts and you're trying on some of the teams for size to see who you like?
I'll say before Joshua speaks, I know he has strong opinions. I'm the same as John. If anyone wants to like try to get me over to their team, it doesn't take a lot to convince me. I really just need someone to say this is your team now. But yeah, I'm just kind of open to watching soccer.
I'll take that as my opportunity. I'm going with the Schalke 04 for these reasons. Okay, they got Weston McKennie, scored a hat trick at Audi Field. He's a U.S. kid, Army brat. Spent a couple of years in Germany. Came back to the FCD Dallas Academy. He signed for the Virginia Cavaliers, but turns out he's pretty good at soccer. So he went over to Germany and now is playing professionally for them. There's a Premier League move in the cards for him. So it'd be really interesting to watch Schalke, who are battling for a European spot, and Weston as they achieve greatness, I think.
So is this like your lifelong, now you're a fan of this team, or is this like a for right now, this team is interesting and we'll see what happens?
I will say I watched a decent amount of Bundesliga. You know, when like Via was the Premier League game of the week, I would, you know, watch Bayern destroy someone ridiculously. And
Sam, for the record, you're not allowed to change teams after you pick one. That's like a
I'm just
fanhood
saying,
thing.
I think it's like this team will be interesting to watch for the next several weeks while no other soccer's happening, and then I'm going to go back to not following a team, or, you know.
Lifelong fans, start now.
Okay, go for it. Yep.
The
you
most
heard it here first, folks. What team it is.
The most Bundesliga I've ever followed is just actively rooting against Bayern, so that tradition will continue. I think that kind of grew out of, you know, getting into soccer as a Real fan and seeing them in some Champions League games, and just even one a good friend of the show who lives in Switzerland, you know, I texted him and was like, hey, Adrian, you know, who's the go-to team? And he replied, anybody but Bayern. So I feel pretty good, but I will tell you personally, I've got it narrowed down, I think, between the two Borussias, Dortmund and Mönchengladbach, and unfortunately, one of the things we won't see in the next few weeks is the fan atmosphere, because that's clearly going to be missing. But we know Dortmund's got a world-renowned one. I'm a little hung up on the fact that they sing "You'll Never Walk Alone," so that might not work for me. But Mönchengladbach, their fans are crazy, and their social media game is outstanding. I remember a couple years ago, they played, I think it was one of the Manchesters perhaps in one of the European competitions, and there was a bar in England that had, you know, wrote on one of those little folding chalkboards out front, you know, Manchester City versus some German team. Like, that was what they chose to write instead of writing out the entire lengthy name. And the social media account changed their name to some German team. And from there on, I was like, that is awesome.
That's pretty great. I'll put it. We'll see what you think about this. Michael Bradley used to play for Gladbach, so take that with what you know. Do with that what you want.
Just a spit take.
I don't hate him as much as you guys do. I think Bradley's, you know, I like Michael Bradley, so I'm okay with that. Black, what do you think? Who's your go-to, or are we still on the fence?
I think my selection is going to be VfL Wolfsburg. They're currently right at seventh in the league, so just outside the Champions League places, but only a point out. So hopefully they're going to be an opportunity to move up and play in Europe next year. They've won the league once back in 2008, 2009, and I happen to already have a jersey lying around. So easy lifelong choice there.
It's Sargent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Solid.
Coming into this very well researched, Mr. Black. So I can't wait for next weekend, and I'm sure we'll be giddy with excitement to talk about the big goals and the big saves on next week's show. So any closing thoughts from the crew?
Soccer, man.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially several of ours who listen to the show every week, which is awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Fantastic interview with Kevin. So if you joined us late, please go back and give that a listen, because we found out exactly who we beat 10-0 in FIFA, and we will certainly remind Bill when he's on the show sometime down the road. So thanks for joining us this week on Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, and we'll talk to you next week about real, live, actual soccer right here.
The bad news is that everyone is a potential victim, but the good news is that everyone is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses to sanitize, keep a social distance and quarantine. Stop! The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind. Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted. Discipline and personal hygiene, and make sure you regularly wash your hands. Keep a distance from everyone. Report anything like